welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, 18-hour special initiative that celebrates the undying entrepreneurial spirit of micro, small and medium enterprises. This is the only daily MSME platform in the country, a show where you can voice your concerns and get answers to all your queries directly from our team of experts. We understand the issues that you, the MSME entrepreneur, face, and the show aims to bring you the most relevant and the most updated information on everything related to your businesses. Tonight, to answer all of your queries, I have with me in studio Prabhakar Dalal. He's a former Executive Director of the Export-Import Bank of India. We also have Sushanta Mitra, founder and CEO of Lead Angels. It's a pleasure as always to have both of you here with us tonight. Let's quickly start then the show with a call that's coming to us from the line of SG Babu. Babu, what's your question?
My question is regarding offshore services. We are an offshore services company providing services to the North American region and wanted to know if there is a serious threat for the SMEs in lieu of the change in policies of the US with the new development there.
All right, thanks very much for that question, Babu. We were talking about this in the previous episode in terms of what likely is going to be the impact on MSMEs given the fact that we're likely to see at least changed policies in the US because of the change in the presidency. How would you put his mind at ease?
I would like to remind that even when Mr. Barack Obama was campaigning 4 years ago, he was speaking against outsourcing. Of course, Mr. Donald Trump is more vociferous on this, but then ultimately it depends on the competitive advantage. If you provide your services of good quality at lowest price, then I think sooner or later you will catch up, and I don't think you will lose business. That is my feeling, because they cannot do away with outsourcing, because it will be to the disadvantage of the US companies more than Indian companies.
Okay. So political rhetoric is what you would say?
Yes, I would say, you have to differentiate the politics and the economics of it. So from the economics of it, will force the large American corporations to lobby in favor of outsourcing, and at that point, they will probably have to bow down to that and forget about the rhetoric during the election campaign.
Okay, so let's set your mind at ease then, Babu, and it's unlikely that things are going to change very drastically, because that, like our experts are saying, would be against the interests of American companies. Our next query is an email that's coming to us from Y. Yatnati. He's written in to us to say that he's a startup, and while startups in India are rich in ideas, they're poor in finance, and by the time they fulfill the eligibility terms of the government, they are dead. Will the government simplify procedures for startup financing like the $3 million USD RBI procedures? So basically, a lot of companies write into us to say that we're struggling to raise finance, whereas I do know that we have VCs and Ps who come on our show and say that, hey, it's not all that difficult. We do have representatives in the banking space who say come and reach out to us. So where is this mismatch happening?
So I think there's truth in both the sides. I think I'm not saying that there's a huge credit gap that there is. There are a lot of companies looking for funding. Not all of them will get it because it's competitive. Not VCs and investors will shortlist the ones that they like and not fund everybody. But that's a normal marketplace. I think from the startup side, understanding the entire process, whether they are raising money from a bank or raising money from an angel network or VC or PE, they need to understand what the processes are. They need to put themselves on the other side of the table and understand and comply with those processes. Sometimes startups have great ideas, they're entrepreneurial, but sometimes don't pay attention to the minor details of the processes, and thereby there are delays, and that keeps them unhappy and makes them unhappy, and even the investors unhappy, because the investor, once having decided to invest, would like to put in the money, because there's an opportunity cost to that money that investor is putting in. So I think startups also need to learn more about the different processes, including government processes, which are simple, but still you have to follow them.
Sure.
Yeah, they should have the viable business ideas, and they should be in a position to convince the lenders that this is going to be successful, because startups, I don't know what is the failure rate, about 60-70% fail, and therefore anybody putting money into the startup has to see that it is a viable proposition. And government scheme also, I mean, they have simplified many things like online application, online registration. And I remember in one of the TV programs, Mr. Amitabh Kant, who was DIPP secretary, gave his personal ID. He said, if you have any suggestions to make, please write to me. I personally guarantee that I will reply to you. So, I mean, government is also trying to, simplify the procedures, but there will be some people who may not get easily, as you rightly said. And therefore, I think one can work more and more on this to make it more simple.
Okay, Yatniti, that's in response to your query. Our next question is coming to us from the line of KR Ram, calling in with his question. Ram, what's your question?
What are the refund norms which are being followed by the startups for the Indian investors? I would like to also know what is the status of this NSE's new proposed SME exchange. How is that going, and what's the current status?
Okay, so that's a two-part question. Thanks for that, Ram. What is he talking about when he comes to refunding investors? Does this tie in with what you were saying previously?
I think what he is saying is the exit route for the investors. Say after 5 years or 3 years, the investor would like to exit, and therefore 3 methods are: he can have the promoter can buy back his stake in the unit. He can find another investor to come in his place. Thirdly, offer for sale through IPO. These are the 3 routes for him to come out of the unit after 5 years when the unit starts doing well, depending on the valuation. Second part is about the SME platform. Both BSE and NSE, they have the SME exchange platform where they can raise funds through IPO, and only stock exchange approval is enough. They don't have to write to SEBI also. So they have made it simpler, but the turnover should not exceed 25 crores. Some limit is there, and more and more companies are listing with NSE and BSE.
In fact, we've had Chitra Ramakrishnan, when she was heading the NSE, coming on our show and saying the sheer number of companies which are listing on the MSME platform and then migrating to the main platform.
Yeah, correct.
Do you want to add to that?
I just want to add that as we know that there are 3 ways of exiting a company. So first thing is there is no refund, in the sense that
exactly, I was wondering what am I missing?
This is not a loan that you have to repay. Most of the investors, equity investors, will be investing in equity. So if the company goes down, they are willing to write off their investment, unlike say a bank or other financial institutions who will find ways of recovering their fund. So equity investors are willing to write off their, of course they are looking for an exit, and exit could be through an acquisition or trade sale or an IPO. But in India largely it is either through a trade sale or through a secondary investment. IPOs of startups are few and far between.
Okay, Rama, we presume you were talking about exits and not refunds, and I hope you've got the clarification that you were looking for. Our next query is coming to us via email from Saurabh Chaudhary. Saurabh has written to us to say that once GST gets implemented, how will the billing for SMEs get affected? He also wants to know, as an SME owner, he would like to know how the taxation process works in detail, as many a time they don't get the bill for the products that they purchase. So there's something clearly wrong there if you're not getting a bill for what you're purchasing.
That is absolutely wrong. If he wants to get input credit, he must have the bill, and the very purpose of introducing GST is that there should be a computerized environment where every billing is done through the system, and therefore he can avail of input credit. Otherwise he will not get the input credit. So everything has to be done through billing only, and for that I think a lot of material is available online also. E&Y, KPMG, even Ministry of Finance question and answer is there, registration process is given, and they have to have the software which is compatible with the GST software that the government is going to launch. So they should be GST ready. I think they should start studying this, what is GST, how it is to be done, and they should forget about no billing and all that.
I'm assuming as an MSME, they're possibly getting arm twisted by some of their suppliers in terms of not giving the bills. Could it possibly be that?
It could be that, but then that has to change. That is the very purpose, like without bills, if they are buying things or selling things, then they will lose the input credit, and bills must be there.
And therefore, they will be at a disadvantage to their competitors who are GST compliant, because the competitor pricing will be lower than theirs, because their cost of, they will be able to take that credit, whereas he will not be able to take that credit.
Sure. Okay, that's an interesting question that you've sent in to us there, Saurabh. But let's take a very quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll continue answering all of the queries that have come into us here for our panel of experts. Welcome back. Here with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight we're continuing to take in all of your queries. The next one is a call that's coming to us from the line of Vikas Gaba. Vikas, what's your question?
We are builders and developers in Gurgaon, and we have a building in Gurgaon, Sector 35, and we are Phase 3. In Sector 35, there's a huge problem of infrastructure. We have not been provided by any drainage for any sewage. Plus, the access and approach to the building is very, very poor. And because of that, the micro market is suffering a lot. The problem is that we are not able to lease or sell the property to anyone, and our business is suffering because of that reason. So these are the two problems we are facing, and we are not able to find a solution to this. We have made multiple complaints to multiple agencies to resolve the problem, but however, they have not been able to provide a solution.
All right, Vikas, that's very unfortunate, and we're really sorry to hear that. So he's spent more than 50 crores on the building, plus there's now an additional demand of 5 crores. Seems to be in a really bad situation. Is there a way out for him?
It's very unfortunate, because one is his building is not on the main road, plus roads are not good, drainage system is not there. But he has invested 50 crores, which is very unfortunate, and is not getting the tenants. So what can be done till such time the situation improves, the rentals go up, or roads and drainage system improves? Maybe he can give some discount on the rental. He can provide some, people like to go to a restaurant. He can have some small food court. He can provide some free Wi-Fi facilities and attract tenants. Once the building gets occupied, even partly, then more tenants will come.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. One of the ways that a lot of these large, there's a fair amount of commercial property which is lying empty, even in the in the big cities. And Gurgaon, of course, is the second largest startup hub in India, one of the largest. After Koramangala, I think in Bangalore, Gurgaon is the largest startup hub. So a lot of startups are looking for economical office space, and what we could do is to create a co-working space, so that he doesn't have to rent the entire building, but he could rent it desk by desk, so that his cost of maintaining and sort of outfitting the entire building is not there. He can get it as the business grows, and because he might not be able to find one tenant for the entire building or one tenant for the entire floor, but it's much easier to find one tenant for 2 desks or 3 desks, right? And at a lower price, he may be able to slowly populate the building, and once he is able to do that, his business will improve.
Okay, because like our experts are saying, it is a very unfortunate situation that you're in, but don't worry, there is definitely a way out of it, slow but steady, and you can definitely ensure that you have tenants for this building that you have. Let's take in our next query. This is coming to us on Facebook from Ravindra Bende. Ravindra has written in to us to say that for any SME or startup which is availing finance, it's a major challenge, and he wants to know about how they can go about availing information and especially availing tailored financial assistance to the operational needs, particularly short term. Also wants to know, are there any credit counseling services that are being provided to SMEs who have the potential to make it big? If yes, how and where can companies like Ravindra's really avail these services? Do you want to tackle that first?
So, of course, as banks and SIDBI and many of these organizations have help desks available now. A a lot of information is available on the net itself. You can Google some of the information. And finally, the getting an expert to help you or a consultant to help you to traverse this path, or finding out from your own peers how they availed of this, the loans and the schemes, and learn from them.
Like I said before, there are dedicated SME branches who are well equipped to advise the SME clients as to how to go about it, how to avail the finance. In addition to that, Reserve Bank of India had issued guidelines in pursuance of which some banks have set up, like Bank of Baroda has set up Sarathi, Dena Mitra, Bank of India has got Abhay, that kind of, where they provide credit counseling services. Like the client comes, he wants to understand how the finance can be availed, what kind of finance, where he will get the finance. So he can approach those branches where these services are available.
Sure. Rabindra, that's in response to your query. Let's squeeze in one more question before we end the show. Kiran Jyotis is calling in with us. Kiran?
I'm one of the director of this company. And my area of concern is that, as IO Technology Solutions Private Limited is providing, electromechanical imaging for all the defense establishments, directly and indirectly. And, we get purchase orders and other result from all the DPSUs and DRDOs. But the area of concern is that we do not get any advances from all these establishments, and it becomes really difficult for us to move forward without any of these advances, because we will have to spend a lot of money initially to procure the raw materials and everything. So that becomes a real tight situation for us, people like MSMEs in India. So I just like to know if there is any kind of a solutions for this, where we would get some kind of advances from all these DPSAs and the DRDO establishments.
All right, Kiran. Thanks for that call. So Kiran is essentially in business with the government. And while it is a great space to be in, because it is opening up, and you're assured of orders, you're assured of business, getting either advances or your money in time clearly is a challenge. What would you recommend?
No, SMEs have been facing this challenge for a long time, and that is why in the MSME Act 2006, there is a provision that all the clients of MSMEs must make payment within 45 days. So it is given in the statute itself. But I know that in practice it is not being followed.
Especially if your client is the government.
Yes, correct. So, one thing is that one can point out that, look, as per the statute, you are required to pay me within 45 days. But in spite of that, it doesn't happen. Then the only way is that you should diversify his clientele. He should go to other clients also, and not solely depend on one client, which is a government organization. That's the only way out.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely, especially for startups who are starting out, and their only client is government, we actually tell them, avoid having government as your client, at least for your first set of clients, because it will significantly affect your cash flows.
Sure.
But I think there are ways in which he could also take access to bank funding, because banks are more comfortable in giving finance against government orders, government invoices, right? True. So
sure.
that he could explore.
So Sushanta, maybe before we in fact end the show, let's talk about the fact that most of the queries, about 80% of the queries that we've got between last week and this week, have all been from MSMEs, startups and entrepreneurs, and they're all talking about fundraising.
Sure.
So maybe a quick primer from you in terms of the top 3-4 things that you think that they should definitely keep in mind when it comes to fundraising.
Yeah. So I'll specifically talk about angel funding, and maybe you can add about bank funding. I would say that the first thing is that you must have your plans ready with you. You must understand the processes through which an angel network goes, because it could take 3 to 4 months to get funding from an angel network. So you must plan in advance, that manage your cash flows, etc., till you get the funding, and also have your books of accounts and other legal compliances ready, so that you don't find that even though the angel network is willing to invest in you, you are not really ready to, you need some work to be done on your filings or your compliances before they will be able to put in your fund. Knowing somebody who has already availed of angel funding and who's been through that process, getting to know how that whole thing works will be very useful. I think also visiting the various websites, events where angel investors do come and speak about themselves would be a good idea.
Sure.
Yes, I think that MSME should have their business plans ready, what they want to achieve, what are their projections. They should have their financial statements, and they should be very honest about their ideas, about their plans, discuss with the bankers what they want to achieve and what are their assumptions. And bankers should also appreciate, and they should not do the collateral based lending alone, because in foreign countries for small and medium enterprises, what they call as collateral versus competency. So it should be competency based lending rather than collateral based lending. So we need to shift from competency based lending to collateral based lending to competency based lending as far as lending to MSME is concerned. And a lot of schemes have come into place, and therefore there is a need to create awareness about those schemes like Startup India or micro and small enterprises. Various SMERA rating is there. If you do the rating, lending from banks becomes easier. You may even get a lower interest rate also. So all this awareness has to be created, and lending to MSME is not difficult. If you are really upright, you present your papers correctly to the bankers, discuss with them, I think it is possible to get the lending.
One of the biggest things that our MSMEs tell us is what you were saying in terms of the collateral. They're saying we don't have collateral, and I think it's a lack of information that you don't necessarily need to put up collateral if you're trying to raise funds.
Yeah, in respect of MSMEs, this 90 days limit should be increased to 120 days or 180 days. Earlier, before this limit was reduced from 108 to 90 days, it was 180 days. So I think for MSME, the government and Reserve Bank should consider whether they can increase this time limit to 180 days for the account to become NPA.
All right, gentlemen, pleasure as always to have the two of you here with us tonight, and that completely wraps up this episode of the Leaders of Tomorrow. If you have any query for our panel of experts, you can always write in to us at leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. You can personally tweet at me at Sunanda_J. You can reach us on social media using the hashtag LOT, or call us on that number you see on your screens. We promise to have all your queries answered. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.